Hi and welcome to the Evolve CEO podcast. I'm your host Greg Gillies, and this podcast is designed for high-achieving CEOs, business founders and entrepreneurs who are looking for ways to expand beyond their business accomplishments, their life and their relationships. We will be taking a deep dive into all topics relating to success, love and happiness, and we will be talking a lot around healing, alignment and manifestation, which is the key to actualizing ourselves and reaching our highest potential. Look forward to you tuning in to this week's episode. Hi, welcome to the Evolve CEO podcast number 1. I am your host, Greg Gillies.
And I'm Tracy Gillies.
And the way we want to start our podcast is to share with everybody our story and the depths of our story. So the story that Tracy and I are going to share with you today, some of the information that we will discuss might be the first that you've ever heard of it. It will be interesting for a lot of people, but it's really important because the work that we do and the level that we operate at with the Evolve CEO, working with the highest level of successful business leaders, we could never do this work if we hadn't been through our own personal transformation and journey, which we're going to share with you today. So I'm going to start. My story began, I grew up in a small country town in New Zealand of 800 people, and 40 years later there's still 800 people. So very humble beginnings. And being a Kiwi kid growing up, it was all about rugby and just having a can-do attitude. So sports was my go-to. I was a very driven and determined young man, so very easily motivated, played a lot of rugby, and at the age of 14, I actually went off to boarding school to a large boys-only school, King's High School, to further my rugby and to just open up new opportunities. And at high school, I actually made New Zealand age grade rugby teams. I was school prefect, I was head of the boarding house, and I achieved a lot from a leadership and a success level. I achieved a lot, and this is kind of in my DNA, and I took this into the professional world at the same time. So really competitive. I used to be able to push myself, or I can push myself really, really hard. But what I didn't realize at the time was what was driving me. And at the time, now that I've done the work that I've done, a lot of the things that were driving me was this internal not good enough, need to prove myself. I was chasing validation, other people's approval of me, and so on and so forth. So I actually had a lot of anger. I was quite an angry young man. I used to get into a lot of fights on the weekends, so it was a bit of a roller coaster life. Now, I met Tracy when I was at high school.
We've been together since I was 16.
So I was 18, Tracy was 16. We'll tell another story about how she didn't want to be with me, but when I want something, I chase, right? Anyway, so I took this drive and this determination into the corporate world, and over a 20-year corporate career, I built and ran 3 multi-million-dollar businesses. I climbed the corporate ladder to high levels, and in around about 2012, 2013, we got a contract to move to Singapore. We had 3 kids under the age of 5. We relocated to Singapore. It was meant to be long-term. It was a big contract, but it ended early. No fault of my own. There was a lot of change in the company that I was working for. But all of my corporate career, I would just push and hustle and grind to climb, and I would do whatever it took to become successful. And that just was years of stress and the impact of the pressure and the responsibility, and then becoming a father and having young children and then relocating them to another country and then losing my contract, having to figure out how to get my family back to Australia, it all compounding down on me. And I started drinking more and more and more as a way to cope. So I was not in a good place. I felt like I'd completely failed, even though I had created a lot of success. I felt completely out of control. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So when we come back to Australia, I said, I'm done with corporate. I'm going back into building my own businesses. And that's exactly what I did. So fast forward to 39, 40 years old, I'd started my own businesses. They were going really well. We were back in Australia, but all of the compounding effect of the stress and the drinking and my mental, physical and spiritual health was just really, really, really poor. I actually had a breakdown. I actually woke up one night after an alcohol-induced blackout, and I was having a major panic attack, and Tracy had to calm me down. And the next morning I just surrendered and I said, Tracy, I can't do this anymore. I need you to help me find help. And I knew that it was a different level of help. Now, I had done a lot of coaching and a lot of consulting and a lot of business training to help me become intellectually successful and be able to create and build businesses and so forth. But I'd never done the deep internal work. And a lot of men don't do the deep internal work because we wear these facades and we put on this brave face and we just go, I'll figure it out. I'll fight through. Yeah. So vulnerability is hard for us. So this was kind of the biggest turning point in my life. I literally had this breakdown. I had to surrender. I went and did 3 months of AA because I thought the alcohol was the problem. If only I got rid of the alcohol, then everything would be fine. And then I realized after 3 months of AA, I didn't continue doing it. That wasn't the path for me, but I realized it wasn't the alcohol that was the problem. It was everything underneath that I was using the alcohol to hold down or suppress or avoid that was the problem. So as things happen, I was invited to go to an event and I ended up signing into a 12-month life coaching program which dealt with inner emotions and inner child programming and conditioning and literally finding out who I was, unpacking my unconscious brain and all of my behaviors and patterns and conditions to just start to open up and figure out who I was. And this was a massive awakening from an awareness perspective, from a mental awareness to understand why I behave the way I do, why I push so hard, why I strive so hard, why I try so hard to create such an amazing, successful life for my family. In trying so hard, I caused so much conflict in our marriage, and I was either happy dad or angry dad at home. So my kids were having fun with me or scared of me and just really didn't like who I'd become. So after this initial journey in the life coaching, I just opened myself up and I just went, I'm going to treat myself as the number one business for the first time in my life. And I'm going all in and I'm just going to be open-minded. And this is where I ventured into doing some deep energy healing work and some spiritual work, which is where Tracy comes in. So I'm going to hand you over to Tracy now.
It's like I have two stories to tell because I'm two very different people in stages of life. So Greg talked about moving to Singapore. Before Singapore, I actually was really unwell after children and probably didn't realise how unwell I was. I know when I gave birth to my first daughter, that first year for us was so hard, especially me. But we live away from all of our family. So all our family's in New Zealand and we live in Australia. So that was hard on that support level for us. But I actually realised after that first year, because I kept going back to the doctor and they would tell me that I was depressed and I needed to be on medication. And I just knew that there was more to the story. And for me, that just didn't feel like the right fix. So after the first year, I realised that I actually had Epstein-Barr virus. We'll talk more about this in our episodes. It's something that I specialise in now. So that was actually an underlying issue to why my mental health and my physical health wasn't great. And then I had a baby that had colic, so I was screaming 5 to 6 hours a night. So who wouldn't be affected by that within that first year? But fast forward a bit, and after 3 children, it was like this compounding effect. You know, even having children, the amount of pressure and stress and babies and all these kind of things. And I actually just about had a breakdown after we had our 3rd child. But I always just kind of kept saying, like, Greg got the contract to Singapore. If I just got rid of these boring mummy jobs, everything would be fine. And so we went to Singapore. And I thought I was going to be this amazing person in Singapore. We had a helper. We lived in like this resort place. It looked like, you know, something off the movies. It was amazing. But I was still deeply unhappy within myself. And we didn't treat ourselves very well. We just kind of drank it down. I wasn't an amazing person. But anyway, when that contract ended and I came back to Australia, again, the compound of all the stress built up. And I really realised what a state I was in and how unwell mentally and physically I actually was. And I actually said to Greg, I need to actually fix this time. So I ended up going to see somebody that did advanced holistic kinesiology, and they also did a bit of energy healing at the time. And my life shifted a bit and I felt better, but she actually said to me that I needed to start doing something for myself because I'd really lost myself in having kids. And so I went on to study. And so this is like story number 2 and where it really kind of got really just a whole nother life and a whole nother world. So I didn't even realize that energy, I don't know, existed. I didn't realize we were multidimensional beings. I didn't really even believe in spiritual things or anything like that. I was probably as asleep as they come. So went on to do this course, and Australia is actually the most advanced, well, Australia and New Zealand, for this type of therapy in the world. So I was so lucky to do this advanced course, and the trainer would be one of the best in the world. And as I went through this course, I did have a lot of healing to do, but he actually said to me it was really strange how much negative entities and negative energy I had attached to me. But he only knew the 1% of it because I actually was still seeing this woman. And as I went through these 2 kind of healing journeys, this lady, doing me a favor, gave me some information. It was called holographic kinetics. It's a way to deal with multidimensional beings and dark energies and these kind of things. And she gave me this information so I could just help keep almost clearing and healing myself through the process. But it was almost my demise. So let's put it this way, a lot of this world and some of the things, we won't talk about too out there stuff, but some of this stuff is out there, and all of that stuff does exist. And believe me, this is now the area that I specialize in because I have these special gifts. But again, I went through this really intense 2 years of not just healing myself, dealing with all this dark entity stuff, but learning how to also heal. But at the same time, there's another story to that as well. The therapy for kinesiology, someone would lie on the table and you would work on their body. And I wanted to keep practicing, and my children were a bit young and they didn't want to lie still for me. So I actually started working in a way called energetic surrogacy, where I would bring people's energy into my body and I would work through myself. And I got so good at this technique and doing this, I actually now work in this way with all my clients. But it was really, really hard for me because if I worked in anybody's energy healing things, like when I say healing, energy, I'm talking about healing physical organs and glands in a person's body, healing their neurological structures, doing the highest soul work that is really possible. But if anything resonated with me, I would actually get really sick. So I actually spent years and years, didn't I?
Yeah.
Quite unwell.
So here I am trying to do my life coaching, trying to get myself in order, and Tracy's doing hers. So we're both going on this crazy healing journey. We're opening ourselves up. But every time you kind of move to the next level, you face the next level of challenges. Are you going to open up another Pandora's box? Are you going to go through that door? And we just kept on opening up doors. And for Tracy, because she had literally opened up the ultimate Pandora's box, there was no going back. She had to continue through and through and through. And to be fair, there was a couple of times where I thought I was going to lose Tracy. It was so scary, is because when she didn't have the sovereignty to protect herself from these negative energies and entities coming in, there was one time that we were down on the Gold Coast and she took on everybody's energy and she collapsed in a heap on the beach, and I had to pick her up and carry her to the car, and I honestly thought I was going to lose her. So we've been through the most craziest healing journey and awakening process. It just continues. So we will never stop. This is like, we work on ourselves on a daily basis. So,
but some of the things that we want to talk about, that it is all the spiritual stuff and energy and those things, but also we both didn't treat ourselves very well. No. We both ended up really unwell, and I wish I had known at the time how managing my mind better, even kind of simple things, could have ended up in me having better care of myself and better health. So again, my deep knowledge of actually helping to heal people from a physiological point of view, adrenal dysfunction, all of these different things, we have this wealth of knowledge, but again, everything's interconnected, mind, body and soul. So again, this podcast is just going to be about so many different topics on health and healing and all of these, areas.
So we're going to be covering every area of your life, from mental, physical, and spiritual health. We're going to be talking about energy. We're going to be talking about Epstein-Barr virus. We're going to be talking about the truth behind burnout and how it's been normalized in the world. We're going to be talking about how the brain works and how we're taking on too much information and how there's so much disconnection between the unconscious and the conscious brain.
We'll be talking about the spiritual and all things to do with that. I think some people have this lovely idea that the spiritual is just all love and light. It is not. It is filled with both dark and light, and that's also the areas that I work in. But again, expanding consciousness, all of these different areas, again, tuning into self and really, you talked about before, it's like changing that internal landscape, and that doing that inner work is what actually creates the external transformation. Because we see so many people, don't we, that have these amazing lives. On paper it looks great, but they're just deeply unhappy. And it's that internal change, and it's doing that internal healing work. And then it's so beautiful to watch the transformations, isn't it? Because it's like they get to enjoy their life. That's the part that I love the best. Is
the
almost,
veil lifts.
Yeah.
So it's going to be heavily focused on the high level, highly successful CEO, entrepreneur and founder, as we discussed. The reason being is because it's kind of the journey that I've been on, right? But more importantly, our mission is to help these high level influential business people and leaders truly open themselves up to their own truth, expand beyond their business accomplishments, their life and their relationships, and truly see what life is like when you access your true highest spiritual potential, when you live an unbelievably fulfilled life, not just a constant chasing of achievement and validation. And when you can step past your own self and create a level of impact that this world desperately needs. There is so much dysfunction going on in the world right now, and we truly believe that our path to helping change humanity is from the top down and helping leaders truly open themselves up, because now that we understand that everything is energy, you shift the energy of somebody who is so powerful and so influential, it will shift the energy and the vibration of everybody in their vicinity, whether it's work, family, community, you name it. So we look forward to sharing more. We will share more of our story. Our stories could go on for a long time, but this is we've already given you some woo-woo. This is the first introduction to us. So we hope that you subscribe. We hope that you tune in, and we look forward to sharing more information. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Evolve CEO podcast. If you value the information that is in our podcast, please like, subscribe, and add a review to our podcast page, because it'll help us understand the value that you are receiving, and more importantly, spread the word of this podcast. Also, share it with your friends and your family. Now, every listener of our podcast gets a free gift from us, and this is our 9 Pillars of Success, Love and Happiness life assessment. This is the exact same life assessment that our high-level clients, which are CEOs and business leaders, go through on an annual basis so that they can assess and reflect the past 12 months of their life and then plan their desired outcome for the next 12 months of their life. And this is our gift to you for listening in. So please follow the links below, and you'll find the link to the assessment page. You'll also find Tracy and my social media links. We would love for you to connect with us on our social media channels, follow our additional content on there, as we want to provide as much value as we can in the event of helping you create more success, love and happiness in your life. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next episode.